Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Seth Williams from REtipster.com. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use a data service called PropertyRadar. So PropertyRadar is a website that I've heard about for years, but I've always been kind of, hesitant to spend a whole lot of time figuring out how to use it because every time I try to learn a new one of these systems, it just takes a lot of time to figure out, where I'm going and what I'm doing. But PropertyRadar is one of those that I've heard about enough over the years. It just seems to come up again and again and again in random conversations with people that I figured, you know what, let's just take care of this thing. Let's do a good review. I'm going to spend some time learning how to use it, and I'll take you along for the ride. So if you're somebody who's looking for a new data service, or maybe your first data service, or maybe you're not even aware of these data services and how they work, I'm going to show you how PropertyRadar works right here in this video. And this is actually going to be one of at least two, maybe three videos, but probably just two, where I explain how to do the property lookup function. And the whole idea here is when you're trying to do property research on one specific property. So maybe you have a property in mind, or you know of a person and you want to find what properties they own. And then once you find those properties, you want to actually dig into the details of those properties and figure out as much information as you can about that property from this data service. And that's what I'm going to show you here. PropertyRadar is actually used by most people for pulling marketing lists. I think that's probably the bigger, most common, more useful feature of PropertyRadar. But I think it's worth making a standalone video just for the property research function, because this has a lot of uses in its own right. So assuming you have a PropertyRadar account, you just got to log in. By the way, if you don't have a PropertyRadar account, you can sign up through the REtipster affiliate link. It's retipster.com/PropertyRadar. I'm going to have that link beneath this video if you want to check it out and help support REtipster. Also, if you do click through that link and sign up, send me a copy of your invoice and I will send you a little list of filtering criteria that I've come up with over the years that you might find useful as well. So it's kind of a freebie giveaway for those of you who sign up through the affiliate link. All you have to do is forward your invoice to me at SethPlusPropertyRadar@REtipster.com. So without further ado, let's get into this. So I'm right here on the PropertyRadar homepage. By the way, there's different pricing options here for PropertyRadar, which you can see right here. And it's pretty well in line with other data services I've seen, possibly even cheaper depending on where you're coming from. This right here is the annual billing. If you are not willing to commit to 1 year at a time and just want to go month by month, then the price goes up a little bit, but you kind of see how that all works. So back here to my account. So one thing I will say is that when you log in for the first time, or maybe it's every single time. Oh, I guess it's until you click this thing. First time you log in, you're going to find a lot of these tutorial videos. And I actually found these very, very helpful. And I also liked how short and to the point they were. It's not like you had to watch hours of videos to understand how to use the software, which is a big plus in my book because I'm a pretty busy person. I don't have a whole lot of time to figure out just how to use the thing I'm already paying for. And PropertyRadar just makes it very clear all the different ways it can be used. And it's actually a pretty user-friendly software, especially once you get through these things. And this will point out uses that I'm probably not even going to have time to cover here in this video. So once you do sign up, be sure to watch some of these videos and you'll see what I mean. It's a pretty cool software. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And right from the get-go, you can choose to either start building a new list, or you can look up a property and start researching it. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to do the latter. I'm going to look up a property and start researching it. So I'm going to go up here, and then we're going to go to Discover. So once you hit Discover, you're going to see a few different buttons up here in this navigation bar. You're going to see Lookup. That's what we're about to start using. You can also see Search. This is where you would go if you wanted to start building a list. Similar to if you've ever used DataTree or PropStream, this is the same list building functionality just on PropertyRadar. And then there's also this thing called Explore over here where you can set up heat maps and start looking at different markets around the country. And I'm actually not going to get into this a whole lot just because it's kind of beyond the scope of this video. But just so you know, I will have another video explaining how all of the list building and exploring functionality works. And that's probably going to be a longer, more in-depth video because there's a lot more to cover there. But again, if you're just looking for one specific property, go over here to Lookup. And right off the bat, here's something that I've never seen before, and that is being able to look up properties based on the owner's phone number or their email address. And I thought that was kind of fascinating and really a great idea. It's kind of like backwards skip tracing in a way. So this works pretty well if you know the person's actual phone number, like the phone number of the phone in their actual pocket, or if they have a landline or something like that. If you have that number, it usually works pretty well. But if it's like one of these VoIP phone numbers or like Open Phone or Ring Central or Google Voice or something like that, then it doesn't work as well, if it works at all. So yeah, you would just put the phone number in and it's gonna show the point on the map where that person is and you can look them up. Same thing with an email address. So if this is like the primary email address that the person actually uses to like pay bills and that kind of thing, then it's probably gonna work pretty well. But if it's like, email address number 5 that a person just uses to put all their junk mail in, then it's probably not gonna find anything. But even so, I found that really, really helpful because, sometimes that's really all you do have is an email address or a phone number. So that's something that you would find useful. PropertyRadar has that and most other data services don't. So let's go over here and just start with the owner name. This is a pretty common way that people would look up properties. And I'll use this example that I use in my PropStream review, and we'll just see what this can find. And one thing you'll notice is that as soon as I put that in there, it showed up here as like one of the filtering criteria. So like we could add other stuff here as well. Like we could also add a site address or something like that. And anything we keep adding to that list will continue showing up here until that list gets whittled down. So say, for example, if I started out with the owner name, John Smith or something like that, where there's like a million of those names out there, it would help a lot to be able to specify some other criteria like the site address or the mailing address or something, just to whittle it down a little bit. But anyway, let's say you're just looking for a person or a company with like one property or a few properties. So it's gonna show those right here on the map. And also just one thing to be aware of about this map is that there are different ways to view these results. If I click on this thing, I could just use grid view where it's gonna basically show me like a spreadsheet. And also another cool thing, once you're looking at this spreadsheet version of it, is that you can scroll to the right or the left. It does show tax delinquent status. I don't know that I would trust this implicitly just based on what I know from other data services. This particular piece of information tends to be pretty old or outdated or just non-existent. I can't speak for PropertyRadar because I don't know where their data is coming from, but just from my experience with other data services, I would not put a ton of stock in that, but at least they're trying. And you can take this stuff and also like move it around if you want to. Like say you could move this one over here and just rearrange it if that's something you want to do. You can also sort these things in ascending or descending order, and it also explains what each one of these things mean. So that's pretty cool. Now going back to the views here, you can also see it in card view. That's where it like shows us this little card for each property and property owner. Or you could do this split view. And this almost kind of reminds me of Agent Pro 24/7 back in the olden days, or Site X Pro, just the way this is laid out. So just know there are multiple different ways you can look at this stuff. And let's go ahead and just click on one of these things and see what we can find out about it. So I'll double click that and it's gonna open this up. When I first saw this, it kind of reminded me of the PropStream layout. I mean, not exactly the same, obviously, but it just kind of has that familiar layout. And you'll see these tabs up here, starting with contacts, property, value and equity, transactions, listings, neighborhood, and my info. And on transactions right here where it dropped us, we can see what type of property it is, number of bedrooms and baths, square feet, lot size, the year it was built, estimated value, purchase price, equity, how long this owner has owned it. So lots of really good information right off the bat. We can also see the current owner and who they bought it from and how much they paid for it. And this information probably will not be available if you're in a non-disclosure state. I haven't tried it in a non-disclosure state yet, but I can only assume it wouldn't be available in those areas. But still, just right off the bat, it's pretty useful. I don't know if this can be used for like a full-blown title search, although just looking here at this transaction history, I'm seeing a whole lot of stuff here. So maybe it could. I mean, we've got all these things. We can actually view the image if we want to. I'm currently on a free trial. And even if I wasn't, I can only imagine I would have to pay to see that thing. But still, the documents are right there. So that's pretty nice and easy to use. And then looking down here, so it tells us the foreclosure history, if any. And there is this disclaimer saying that all this stuff is subject to errors and omissions. So they're basically saying, don't believe any of this, but maybe it's right. So use that information at your own risk, I guess, which I guess is kind of always the case with everything. Let's go back over here to context though. So this is where we would usually start. So we can see the name of the owner and that owner's mailing address. There's a button here where you can really easily skip trace to find their phone number and email address like right from this. So I'll go and try one of those just to show you what I mean. And then over here, if we click on the property tab, so we can see the property's parcel number the legal description, a lot of the same stuff that's stated up here, but it's just listed down here again. And we can see even more information about the structure and the property taxes, how much that annual property tax bill is, and the estimated tax rate. And it'll even include a link to the county tax collector's website if you want to verify this stuff. But otherwise, it just puts it in here really conveniently for you. And if we go over here to value and equity, so here it will show us the estimated value in the estimated equity amount. And I believe the way it's doing this is it's going back here to the transactions tab, and it's taking into account the loan amount of record, and then also when it was purchased, and then how much it was purchased for, and it's doing some math behind the scenes to give you its estimated equity amount. There isn't really a way to know this number definitively without actually contacting the bank and finding out what the balance is. And a lot of banks probably wouldn't do that anyway if you're not the actual borrower. So this is not like an exact number, but it's just making some assumptions based on the information it has. But even so, it's useful to have that info just to get an idea. You can also find the market rent information right here. And then down here, you can find some recent sales comps in the area that it's going to just automatically find for you. You can also see some of the for sale listings. And then down here, you can even do your own analysis if you're planning to flip this property or to rent out this property. And you know, these are pretty simple calculations. As you can see, it's probably nothing like the spreadsheet that you have on your computer or something like Deal Check that is much more comprehensive. But still, if you're interested in that, you can plug in your numbers and see what it tells you. And then back up here, if we skip over transactions, because we already saw that one, if we go to listings. So I believe this is just showing you whatever listings are out there on the MLS for this property itself, if it's on Zillow or Realtor or Redfin. So, you know, evidently this property is not currently listed because we're not seeing anything. And then the neighborhood tab, I thought this was pretty interesting because it gives you some good insights about the area where the property is, including a lot of demographic information, which is pulled from the US Census. And then also these little meters down here that kind of show you some of the housing risk factors to be aware of in that area. And seeing this information on any property you look at can be pretty useful, as you can imagine, if you're at all concerned about the supply and demand of housing or the economy or the inventory availability and a lot of other stuff. So that's just kind of built into every property profile. And then my info. So this is where you can just insert your own info. Say if you have pictures of the property or notes you want to take on it or files, this is where you can store that for your own reference. And then up here, if you are highly interested in this property or just moderately interested, you can kind of score it for yourself just so you're aware. And then for the status, so if you are actively working with this property, say if you're just starting to look at it, or if you need to get out and take pictures of it, or if you need to contact the owner or submit an offer or anything, you can select all these things just so that it will keep track of where this property is at in your pursuit of trying to get the deal or sell the deal or close the deal or whatever. You can also add this property to any existing lists you might have. And, you know, I literally just opened this account, so I don't have any lists built yet. I'm going to get into that in the next video. But if you did have an existing list, you could add whatever property you're looking at to whatever list you have going. And then if you wanted to just keep going down the list of properties owned by this property owner, you can click over and go to the next one and see the information about that property. If we go back here, so we can still see that list of all the properties owned by this property owner. And I want to show you an example of what it looks like when you find an actual individual, just so I can show you the skip tracing stuff that's built into this. So let's go over here and let's just type in Smith and look that up. So because Smith is obviously a very common name, we're finding 1,238,348 properties across the United States. So I'm just going to pick a random one and we will see what we can find here. I'm also going to blur out this person's name just to protect their privacy. But as you can see here, it gives us a really easy way to, skip trace this person and find their phone number and their email address. And it even gives us their social information, which actually is not as useful as you might think. So what happens here when we click on this, all it's going to do is just search for that person's name, their city, and their state. So it doesn't actually bring you to the Facebook profile. It just does a search and it will show you whatever comes up with that, which might be nothing, like is the case for this person. You can also do the same thing on LinkedIn. And I think if you're a paying subscriber, some of this stuff might show automatically. You wouldn't have to be prompted to pay for it like I am here, because I'm still on my free trial, like I said. So that might be why it's making me do that. But a lot of the same property information is here. Same kind of thing we saw in the earlier example. And, no real surprises here. We can also expand this thing if we want. And when we're looking at one specific property like this, there are also these layers here. And you can turn on this heat map. which will show us property types, or we could also sort it by square footage just to see what's going on around that property, or we could sort it based on year built. So that's kind of interesting to see that stuff. We can also search based on flood zone and flood risk, which I know is a pretty useful thing out there for land investors and house investors of all kinds. And we can also search by estimated value, estimated equity, just to get an idea for the values of the properties and the equity amounts that people have in this area. And this little owl icon over here will give us different satellite angle views of the property, and kind of look at the property from different angles and get a sense for what it looks like and what's around it. And then there's also this thing right here, which gives you the street view of the property. That's pretty helpful as well in a lot of cases, assuming the street view is available. Now, one other thing to be aware of is that PropertyRadar does have a mobile app that allows you to do pretty much everything that I'm showing you here from your phone, if that's something that you would find useful. I haven't used it a lot myself, and looking at the mobile app store, it looks like it has a pretty decent rating with some kind of like mixed reviews. Seems like most people like it, but some people don't. But anyway, just keep that in mind as well. If you're somebody who is on the go, maybe if you're like driving for dollars or something like that, a lot of PropertyRadar's features can be used from your phone. And in terms of like using it solely for driving for dollars, I don't know if it's like the #1 app I would suggest for this, because Deal Machine is like the best thing I've ever seen for that specific purpose. Like it was built exactly for that. So if that's why you'd be using the mobile app, I don't know if it's like the best thing out there, but it's certainly usable for that. Say if you can only afford a PropertyRadar subscription, or that's all you want to deal with, it does have a mobile app that works, you know, at least halfway decently. So be sure to check that out too. That pretty much wraps it up for this portion of the tutorial and overview on PropertyRadar. Again, if you want to sign up and help support REtipster and get the little sheet of list filtering ideas from me, just go to retipster.com/PropertyRadar. And once you sign up and get your payment confirmation, go ahead and send me an email at Seth+PropertyRadar@retipster.com. So thanks again for watching. Join me in the next video, and I'll see you there.